What's up, everyone? Welcome to North America Show. Your host, Rob Noer. I'm sort of busy right now. What do you think of that? I got my new phone. Here's my old phone. And then here's my new phone. I got a smaller one with less camera because I don't use it very much. I get tired of having this big bulky thing. Nice to have a smaller one. It's screwing up on me. It was like when I was calling, it was like clicking real bad with people, they were telling me. And it makes me sound like I have a gay lisp when I'm talking on Spaces. So we're hoping the new guy doesn't do that. I don't know. Anyways, I got a show for you tonight. I don't know. It might be shit. I'll be honest. Sometimes I come on, I'm like, it's a great show. Sometimes you're like, I don't know if it'll be great or not. Who the hell am I? Sit here and lie to you? I know it's going to be a great show. How do I know? I could start like choking on my drink 3 minutes in and I have to run to the hospital. So that could be interesting. Then you just get chair for quite some time. And enjoy this chair while you can. It's on its last legs, quite literally. It's going to be replaced soon. That's right. We're slowly replacing everyone. Starting with chair, then Avarice is out of here, then my mods, then me, and then my editor, Black Elk. He'll be last to go. He's the only one worth a shit here. The rest of us all suck. Especially me. I am the worst of the bunch. But man, it's great to be here. I did the extravaganza. I'm going to start doing the extravaganza probably darn near every Monday through Thursday. Well, I'm sorry to hear that no cool name yet, but it's worth talking about. One thing that's weird about it, though, if I set up, like today I did the extravaganza by myself, which is basically the stories I was going to talk about here with you all. So if you watch the extravaganza, these damn gnats, they're everywhere in this town. What's going on? Anyways, so now it's like I could come up with new stuff. I only got so much, you know? I guess I could just play whip songs for... Anyways, it's great to be here and it's good to see y'all. I took my son to see the movie Minions and Monsters today. And we saw Toy Story 5 Monday. So we went to the theater twice this week. And I think my son very much like, if it's worth it to you all, if you have kids and you're trying to decide which movie to go to, I think my son personally really enjoyed the Minions movie more. It's very slapstick. Like the parts my son liked the most were where it was just like hectic chase scenes or fighting scenes where it's just, I think the Minions are as close as we have it to like Looney Tunes now. Like when I was growing up and you watched those old like Looney Tunes cartoons, it was all like Bugs Bunny just basically beating the shit out of Elmer Fudd or something. Sort of like that, right? Where there's all kinds of wacky, fast-paced shenanigans going on. Oh, the USA scored. Good for them. I'm cheering for the USA while simultaneously not giving a shit about soccer or the World Cup. But there we go. Go! Oh, wait. I'm still at 0% of my dono goal. Shit! Who's the U.S. even playing? I don't know. Is it to the point also where it's single elimination? I think so, right? Where it's like if you lose, you're out. You're playing. I mean, we're bragging about beating Bosnia? Gee. It's like me bragging about beating Brian Shapiro in a debate. Anyways, so yeah, the Minions movie. I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. The plot's very thin. It's just an excuse for shenanigans, right? But it's good shenanigans. And of course, I mentioned this on the extravaganza, so a bit of a repeat. the theme of the Minions movies themselves, there's been 2 or 3, right? It's like they're always looking for an evil boss to follow. So in Despicable Me, in the first one, they've already found Gru, but the Minions movies are like prequels to that. And so they're always looking for an evil villain. And some of the Minions like split up, and one of them find this robot guy, and the new one is the evil villain. And spoiler alert, the evil robot guy ends up getting in with the women's suffrage movement. That's right, the real villain of the story, women voting. I was like, all right, based, nice. Did I see a guy put a flag on the Empire State Building proposed up there? Nah. Oh, my son loves the Paw Patrol movies now. He was a big fan of the Mighty Pups. Yeah, the new one, it's like Dino Island, and my son's a big dinosaur fan, so I'm imagining we'll be out there. You know what the Minions are? Imaginarium? You live in a box? Minions are everywhere. No, I miss Supergirl. I talked about that yesterday. I do want to watch the Citizen Vigilante movie just to support. Yeah, Paw Patrol's not bad. You know. Yeah, the little yellow guys with like 1 or 2 eyes, depending on which one. Look at this, James. Gets us to 0.6 of the way to the goal. Thank you, James. There's a man. I proposed to my wife at our home. I think my wife would have been very upset if I proposed in public. It was a private matter. As I was talking to her and about to like get on my knee and propose, I was trying to like say nice things to her. And she literally asked me, like right before it was evident that I was proposing, why are you being so cheesy? Which is a true story. And I was like, oh, well, I'm proposing. And she said yes. And then we went out and had fun that day. Went to breakfast. But yeah, my recommendation, Minions vs. Monster. Pretty solid movie for a kid. And even as an adult, there were some chuckle-worthy moments. So, thought we'd have a hodgepodge show today. Candace Owens, stuff to talk about. The midterms, some news on that. Mitch McConnell, some news on that. Of course, we could also talk about whatever you all want. Talk about Dino Gate. That's the one subject my lawyers have asked me. Majority of women don't want a woman for president. Is that true? I don't know. Yeah, Tucker Carlson supposedly starting a third party. Nice. Good work, Tucker. Look, I sympathize with people that are furious with the Republican Party. I myself am pissed, particularly with the Republicans in the Senate. But, I mean, at this point, it's obvious what a third party does. You talk about Dinogate all you want in the form of super chats, then I'll read them. So, yeah. Tucker, the Democrats' greatest soldier. Yay. Well, let's get fired up. I guess first I'll talk about Mitch McConnell. And then we'll go to Candace, and then maybe we'll end on the midterm stuff. You know, to me, there's 2 stories with McConnell. I mean, this was from, when was this from? A couple months ago, I think. Let's start there. And this is just one of a litany of videos like this. I assure you there's a bunch. Those aren't even the worst videos. The worst are when he's like freezing up. Let's see if I can find one of those. It's sad. This is from 2023. So this is more than 3 years ago. This was the condition McConnell was in. Keep in mind, he won an election after what you're about to see here.
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, he didn't run after this. I'm sorry.
All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute.
So there's two stories, I think, well, three, I guess, worthwhile having here, in no particular order. The first is, whatever you think of Mitch McConnell, he presumably has a family and has someone out there that cares for him in a personal way. And just like with Biden, where the fuck are these people to step in and be like, what are you doing? This is sad. It's terrible. It's absolutely horrific. And it is just completely negligent to allow someone like that from a personal level. And maybe there's someone at a personal level that doesn't have that amount of control. A niece, a granddaughter, or something that's like, oh my goodness, what are they doing? You need to stop. And I feel terrible for those people, for those loved ones. And I feel bad for Mitch. And I also felt bad, despite he's a shithead, for Joe Biden. It is one of my biggest personal fears to have dementia or to have a mental health illness that's so severe that I basically lose who I am. You know, I've had people personally in my life, family members, as they got older, that had severe cases of things like that. And certainly I worked in a field where those sorts of things were common, working with adults with disabilities. And it's truly a frightening thing to freeze up and to start to lose your cognitive function. Truly. And so I, on a personal level, feel bad for Mitch McConnell. That's the first issue. The second is, you know, apparently McConnell's entire shtick, put an asterisk beside this, which I'll get to in a minute. It's just been, I hate Trump. And I don't know where the place for that is at this point. I am a person that still, I guess I'm sort of a romantic in the sense that I think running for office means something, that you have a duty to the people that elected you. Now, there's different types of, you have more of a delegate type representative that's just like, hey, I'm purely just doing democratically what my constituents want. So I'll be like, what do y'all think about term limits? And if more than 50% say in my district say we're for that, I'll say, okay, I'm for that. Or you have the ones that outline what their beliefs are, and then they win an election and they honor that and continue to represent the will of their constituents. Nowhere in there is, I don't give a shit about any of that. I just hate this guy that's on my side. And so at that point, it's like, but then of course the elephant in the room is what a laughable, I mean, our system is broken, maybe beyond repair. I mean, the fact that someone like McConnell could have been like this for 3 years, and for all we know right now tonight is dead. There's reporting that he was unconscious, was rushed to the hospital a day or so ago. We have no idea. None. Remember, who was it? It was the black activist congressman, Lewis, who died like during the pandemic. Remember, they had a big funeral. You weren't allowed to go visit your family, but they had this big funeral. And I think it was with his death where there was like votes He disappeared, and it turned out it was severe health consequences, but there were still votes that he was voting for. And it really illustrates that there's such a problem with so many of these elected leaders just being figureheads and their staff running things. And because of that, it's like building relationships and stuff like that's more important than like having good governance ideas. And so we can see the age of politicians become older and older and older. John Lewis, that was it, Trans. Yeah. Someone has to step in. You can't have people like McConnell, in my estimation, and I'm just being brutally honest, some of the incidents I've seen with him are worse than Biden. And Biden, it was bad enough. Now, the Biden story is ultimately worse because he was president, which is obviously more powerful and important than an individual senator. But my goodness, all of the stuff for 3 years now that we've been dealing with McConnell, it's a joke. Yeah, what was his name? Keynes or whatever went missing for 2 months. And now he came back and was like, well, I had depression, but I'm running again. We can't have this. We just can't have it. And there's so many things wrong with our system, but this ought to be something that, yeah, Dianne Feinstein, that's another. This ought to be something that it's like, we could all surely come in and be like, listen, at this point, and the fact that there's not a big movement, and here's what's telling, there's not even a big movement of Democrats like, get McConnell out of here. What is happening? They always want to protect incumbency, like above all else. Well, if we say McConnell's got to go, they'll say that Feinstein had to go, or Biden. It should be simple to just be like, yeah, man, it is so evident now that there are health problems that are so significant. You got to go. And if we're going to tell you right now, we're going to vote to remove you. So either you voluntarily step down and keep some dignity, or... Now, look, this is different than when they were like, we're going to remove Trump, because we don't think he's cognitively fit. I'm not suggesting that. Or someone on the left that's the equivalent. I'm suggesting people that are clearly impaired, like don't know where they're at. And I know if they would have removed McConnell, they would abuse it and take it further and further. But my goodness, we have to have some metric of enough's enough. There has to be something. Yeah, if McConnell was a firebrand like Trump guy, Democrats would be all over this. So, I don't have much more to say. There's a good chance Mitch McConnell has seen his last days in the halls of Congress, and it's sad. It really is. As a personal story. But it's even sadder as a political story that we have a system where this is allowed to occur. So, it's not worth I'm not suggesting blackpilling, but you got to be honest and say, what is happening? How is this possible? So, all right, that was that. Let's read some super chats. A couple came in because you guys are great. FN, thank you so much. $10 as my first super chat. Good to see you, Rob. Thank you. I'm honored. My own parents are fans of Baron Coleman and Candace. God save us all. Look, your parents are your parents. You'll never get another set. So always try your best to not leave political disagreements, drive a wedge into that. Not that I'm suggesting you're doing that. But, yeah, it's tough. That's tough. Steele, thanks for the $2. Says that Mitch votes against passing the SAVE Act is why. Totally agree. Let's just jump into it. We're going to talk about Candace Owens, Baron Coleman, the Charlie Kirk conspiracies. We're going to jump into it. Now, let me first say this. As of right now, I am not being paid one dime by Turning Point to push back against these conspiracies. So let's get that out of the way. But go ahead and give me a call, Turning Point. I'll do it for the love of the game. I want to start talking about conspiracy theories in general and sort of defending Barron and Candace Owens and that ilk. First, let's actually start before then. Where did this Baron Coleman, where did he come from? I hadn't heard of the guy until a week ago. I was aware that there were people other than Candace that were discussing conspiracy theories about Charlie Kirk, but I had not heard of Baron Coleman, but apparently he's one of the bigger people. Yeah, when people were just saying the name Barron, I was like I imagined huge, tall Barron Trump being like, something's up with that Charlie Kirk thing. Like, Barron, no! But yeah, so, I don't know. So let me defend them a little. You ought to have every right when it comes to public political situations or peripherally political. And Charlie Kirk's assassination is a political story. It's also a personal story, which makes it tough. But that's true anytime there's some horrible situation like this. Even if it has huge political ramifications, there's still at somewhere individual people involved. Charlie Kirk was a hugely influential political and cultural figure. But he was also a husband. He was also a father. He was also a friend to people. And so it's weird because I think a lot of times what happens is we talk about stuff and it becomes very abstract. But you are talking about people at the end of the day. So it's always something to remember when you're talking about conspiracy. Like, let me give you an example. I don't care for the Obamas at all. But there would be people that would say things like, well, Barack doesn't care about his daughter, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't know, he probably does. I don't have to like the guy to think he probably has a soft spot for his daughter. I'm not here to say he's the greatest dad or anything like that. I'm just saying on a fundamental level. I think Joe Biden loves his son, Hunter. I think he abused Hunter and helping him get in some bad situations where Hunter basically was a bag man for the family. But I digress. Now, having said all of that, you have every right to be as skeptical about any official story as you want. And in fact, you should be. It's not just that you're allowed, you should be skeptical. And sometimes that may mean the very nature of your skepticism may lead you to believing things that will be hurtful to people. And that's okay. You should be allowed to do that. Now, clearly there are libel and slander laws. I get that. But in general, I think it should be a lot of leash given to people to talk about stories that have public ramifications. Let's take a story that's not Candace Owens or something like, if I was a parent who lost my child in Sandy Hook and Alex Jones brought on someone that said that I was an actor and I didn't really lose a child, I'd be furious. I would probably file a lawsuit at the very least, and if I won, I'd be happy. But I also don't want to live in a system outside of that subjective feeling where that becomes the norm. Because you can see how quickly it would get out of hand. Either toe the official line or we'll sue you into oblivion or we'll revoke your right to say anything. And so it leads to a weird spot where two things could be true simultaneously. People could spout off conspiracy theories that are very hurtful to people. In this case, like Erica Kirk or Charlie's friends and coworkers at Turning Point USA. And if done in an inappropriate way, it could be disgusting and terrible. But they ought to have the right to be able to do that and to speculate. And not only ought they have the right, I think that at a level, we should all be skeptical of official stories that we're given. Because the alternative is just blind acceptance, which isn't good. So you find yourself in a difficult position. Turn to something like Pizzagate. Now, in general, do I feel that there are very powerful people that commit horrible abuses against the most vulnerable of society? Yeah, I do. I believe that's true in general. But it's very difficult to point to an individual and say, that person, they're doing it. Especially if that person's not like a big public figure. So like during Pizzagate, I don't think you shouldn't be allowed to say, I think something's going on and maybe this particular pizza parlor's involved, but you better be more than just speculating. You better be looking at some level of evidence and trying to draw reasonable conclusions. Because if you're wrong, you're making some heinous fucking allegations about people. Allegations that could fuck up their entire life. And that's what's happening in particular with Erica Kirk. Now, forget about the story and what you think you know for a minute. Just know these bare bone facts. Erica Kirk lost a husband. Erica then tries to pick up the pieces of the organization that he was instrumental in running. And she becomes in the public eye in a very big way within days of Charlie being assassinated. And Erica Kirk's being heavily scrutinized as being involved with or covering up with the people that murdered her husband. Unless she did that, that's horrible. I can't think of something worse to be accused of than to take out your own deeply loved spouse or child or something of that nature. That's fucking horrible. Now, what if she did it? Should we not be allowed to talk about it? Because, no, I'm not saying that. But then again, if you're going to speculate, I hope you have some, say it with your chest and be willing to defend those opinions. And you can understand why, in this case, Erica, but you could branch this out to other people at Turning Point, would want to be like, yeah, fuck you to the people that are making these accusations. If I was Erica Kirk, I would never talk to anyone ever again that made these accusations about me. I'd be like, I don't know you anything. You disgust me. At the time of, the biggest grief I'll ever have, you attacked me. You looked at me with a microscope. Every gesture I made, you tried to use it to attack me. Go fuck yourself. I'm not addressing you. That's what I would do if I was in her position. But am I saying that, the government should come in and not allow people to question it? No. Question away. Here's what gets me, though, and where I'll stop. So, in general, if this Barron guy or Candace or the dozens upon dozens of others, people that stream and their followers that engage in these theories that Turning Point or Erica Kirk helped Israel or some other group kill Charlie Kirk, here's where I can no longer defend them. It seems that they're unwilling to try to hash this out with people that are willing to go through the evidence with them. For example, ever since Andrew Wilson came out and said, I debate, I'll be happy to have discussions with you all about this. It seems the answer is no, we'll only talk to people like Andrew Colvett or Erica Kirk. Which again, I already explained why if I was those people, I'd be like, fuck you, I'm not talking to you. Because no matter what they say, Erica or Andrew Colvett, all it does is bring more attention to this. And no matter what they say, it's going to be twisted. So as I said yesterday, if there is a conspiracy that I believe in, and people are like, yeah, we want to talk about this, I'd be like, okay. Particularly if it was people involved with the organization. In this case, Andrew's saying that he's working with Turning Point to do this. I don't know if that's currently true or not. I know he worked with them to help coach debate because I was there and I did that as well. But so much of what you see with this shit is just mind-bendingly frustrated. So I'll be the first to admit, like, and here's the thing. What happens when you discuss this is people be like this. Have you watched everything Candace said? Have you watched everything Barron said? Have you sifted through thousands of hours? No. Okay, well then you can't comment. So if I see Candace make some sort of point or her supporters make some sort of point and I'm like, okay, I'd like to ask about that. No, you just can't comprehend. You haven't listened to everything. And until you hear everything, well then you can't make any judgments. You can't do that. And it becomes incredibly frustrating because some of the stuff you hear, it seems like, if I could be blunt, it seems like they're just throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks. It doesn't matter. They'll make a claim, and if you're like, whoa, let's talk about that claim. And if it ends up to not be true or seems to not be true, they'll just make adjustments and quickly move on to the next thing. And so it's never ending. So, for example, the first time I talked to, at least, I don't know if they were Candace supporters or just people that heard her theories, it was the Egyptian plane thing. And I was like, oh, okay. What's the theory? Well, there were these Egyptian planes. Okay. And they were over the Kirks. Okay. Wow. What's the theory? And it seems like a lot of that. It seems like, well, here's something that we would say is a peculiarity. Okay. Wow. Isn't that odd? It's peculiar. All right. Now, the very nature of the life of someone like Charlie Kirk and his family and those around him are going to be very peculiar. I find people that fly on airplanes like once a week to be sort of peculiar to me. It's outside of my normalcy. I find it weird how it seems like so many people in life have connections to like famous politicians or intel agencies or something of that effect. I never had that in my life growing up. So there's a lot of things to a normal person for someone with a life like Charlie Kirk that may seem extremely odd. Like, for example, you may say this. Well, don't you find it peculiar how many intel agents were around the Kirks? Well, yeah, for a normal person. But for someone who's routinely talking to, like, J.D. Vance and was very good with J.D. Vance and was running a probably billion-dollar political organization, I don't know, maybe that's not that odd. Maybe that's just the way shit is. I don't know. But it's easy to convince just normal people like me, well, that is odd, right? And then you fill in the gap. And as FN says here, or Finn says, I'm sorry, $10. There he is. We're just asking questions. Right. Just asking questions. So, and Searsight, sorry I missed you. $5. Good evening to you, as always, Searsight. So I just want to go through one exchange here, real quick, just to see, like, my level of frustration. Now, to be clear, as heinous as I think it is what these people are accusing Erica Kirk of having done, I'm willing to hear it out. But the problem is, every time I listen to little chunk, what I'm not going to do is listen to hundreds of hours. I'm just not going to do it. I might do it if I get pissed enough. But I'm like, all right, man, just tell me what you got. Let's hear it. And it's like, well, here's 50 things. No, some of them I don't know. Like, there's a lot of like, well, did you know that like some of the people at Turning Point, like it was like a Manchurian candidate, like Erica Kirk was like Stepford wife, built by Israel and planted in front of Charlie so that he would fall in love with her. And then she was their asset. And here's how we know it, because they met here and maybe they did meet at certain places that these conspiracy theorists are talking about. I don't know. But there's stuff that you could hear that doesn't require that level of knowledge. That's just like, okay. And some of it, it's just, so the first was just two things. Now, I have to admit, much like with firearms, and I'm not an expert, but I have a feeling, the first thing that you hear people saying is because there wasn't an exit wound, this couldn't have been a 30-06. One second. Now, I don't know a lot about firearms. I own firearms, I hunt, but by no means am I an expert. Most of the people I know in my personal life know more about firearms than me. Okay? But here's my understanding of that. Ballistics are very complicated, and oftentimes bullets could do very unexpected things. In addition, it's not just the caliber of the bullet that we should be focused on, but the exact type of tip that the bullet had, the amount of powder in the casing. MLK was shot allegedly by a 30-06 with no exit wound. So my general feeling when it comes to ballistics and wounds in the human body is there's actually a pretty reasonable likelihood that it would do things that maybe the average person wouldn't expect. Like a bullet may hit a collarbone or something and then radically change direction. That could happen. Now, for a layman, and I consider myself a borderline layman, you'd think, no way. A hunting rifle, it would go right through bone. But apparently not always. Chances are, any path that would be taken by a bullet would be somewhat unique. And if you really wanted to isolate it under a microscope, you could say, what are the chances that it took that exact path? Very slim, which is technically true, particularly if you're hitting bone. Even if it hits bone and only changes 1 degree in direction, you could say, what are the chances that it deflected in that exact manner? I remember I used to watch this show called Forensic Files. Anybody ever watch it? I love Forensic Files. It's a great show. Used to be on like ID Discovery and basically it was just stories of like murder investigations or other cases that they use some scientific method to help break the case. And there was this one of this person that was murdered at a shooting range. And I think they arrested a person, but they were baffled by this case. And I kid you not, this is what ended up the official explanation. There were people at the range that were doing sort of like speed shooting with handguns. So if you can picture this, what happened was that person pulls the trigger and there's some recoil and the gun discharged twice. So bam, bullet comes out, but as there's a slight recoil, bam, it discharges again. So the gun is now being held not at like 180 degree straight angle at a target, but it's slightly up, off angle. And what had happened was this person at the range 30 yards away shoots, and then the second shell goes off, total accident, and the person didn't even realize it. It goes up through a wall and then hits a roof. And instead of lodging in the roof, it reflects downward and hits this fucking person in the building and kills them. Total accident. A 1 in a million thing. Like, what are the chances it goes through the first wall, but then deflects off the ceiling at the exact angle? And you would have been like, if someone had a motive that was there, you'd be like, no chance this was an accident. No chance. That's impossible. But that's what really happened. Now, it sounds ludicrous, but basically the lesson for me, and I'm sure as you get more involved in ballistic science, you're able to make more accurate predictions and understand more. But for me as a layman, it's like there are times where this could act in a very strange way, right? So, all the people that are like, it's a pup. Now I see that there's footage they're showing of like Charlie's shirt puffing back when he was hit. But again, if you look at someone shoot ballistics gel, what happens is when that bullet goes through the gel, you see the gel like expand because like the kinetic energy that it's hitting with. Now I'm no expert, but people look at it and they're like, aha, see, a bullet couldn't do that. And it's like, really? It couldn't? Can you explain that? And then oftentimes you see people that are experts saying, yeah, those people are full of shit. Yes, a bullet can do that. In fact, many times it's quite common. Now, I do have a guest. If you hear me guest, I promise I'll bring you up. But I want to get to this part first, right? So there was that level of it. And then there was the part about this, which, again, I'm no expert. I am CPR certified. We're going to play this clip from Sean Ryan's show. Maybe someone's more of a medical professional than me. I admit, I'm just the lowest level of CPR certified you could be. In fact, it may have expired. I think you got to get it updated every 2 years. I think I'm still good. But nonetheless, here we go. Here's her point.
I mean, I don't know. Do you give CPR to somebody who's been shot in the fucking neck?
Well, if you don't keep someone's heart going, it doesn't matter, right? Like nothing else matters if your heart stops pumping. So yeah, you would give CPR, I would imagine. You keep CPR going at all times.
Now, just from the language right there, she's so sure. She points to these things as evidence. Well, they didn't give CPR in the way that I think that you would do if it was your loved one that was shot or your friend that was shot. Therefore, something suspicious. And Sean Ryan's like, someone shot in the neck? You pumping the blood? Is that what you're doing? And she's like, well, I think you would. What do you mean you think? Now, my understanding, and this was just my thought, if there's a significant wound like that, you try to like treat the wound first before you actively pump blood, because like chest compressions will move oxygen, but also has the potential to move blood, which you could have significant blood loss. But I don't know. But I have seen people that are commenting on that. What I'll say is, I don't know enough to make some sort of definitive, aha, this proves that the official story is right or wrong. But people like Candace don't leave that lack of knowledge challenge their assumptions. They're just like, this is how I think it should be, so therefore, it must be a conspiracy. Now, again, some of the things she's going to say, it's difficult for me to check. Like if she says, part of my theory is that Charlie met Erica at this party in 2013. I don't know. That doesn't prove anything on its own, but I don't know if that factoid is right or not. But I see little factoids like this, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I don't find that to be suspicious at all. In addition, there's a lot of shit that she's saying, like, and others are saying, that has to do with how the people on the ground, right as the shooting occurred, acted. Well, they acted weird. Yeah, you're looking at shit in slow motion in the heat of a moment. I bet there are weird. Now, that doesn't say that there can't be some evidence there, but in general, it's like, sure, I guess if you took a crowd in the moment of like MLK's assassination and you hyper-focused on each person in slow motion in high def, you could say, what's that guy doing right there? That looks weird. Was he giving a hand signal to someone? Maybe it's just someone like, what the fuck's going on? And then there's a lot of like interpretation of how Erica Kirk or Andrew Colvin, etc., should act after the death of a friend or of a husband. I mean, again, no expert in this. I know, and I've personally seen people process grief in incredibly strange ways. The best funeral, it's weird to say, that I ever attended was my Uncle Zepp. Zepp had like 7 DUIs in his life. He was a scoundrel of a man, but hilarious, a great man, but a drunken scoundrel. And this young Catholic priest is at his funeral, and he's like, I didn't know the guy. He's unmarried. He doesn't have kids. So there wasn't like really anyone to really deal with the funeral that usually a clergy person would talk to. He didn't attend church. And so the priest was like, said some nice words and said, would anyone like to get up and tell some stories? The whole place was laughing their ass off at the funeral, just telling one hilarious story after another. If you walked in, you'd be like, are these people grieving? Yes. That's how it was being done. That's how Zepp would have wanted it. I've seen people break down and sob uncontrollably. I've seen people catatonic. I've seen people almost like giddy laughing because that's how they were processing it. I've seen people acting almost normal. And in all of those situations, I'm 99.99999% sure that all of those people were grieving. It wasn't that they didn't give a shit about their loved one who had just passed. And yet, we're supposed to look at every Erica Kirk, a woman who's thrust into an impossible situation, let's be honest, probably unqualified. And I'm not saying that as an insult to Erica Kirk. I'm saying that Charlie was a very unique person. Who has those qualifications to do all of the skill set he was doing for Turning Point? No one, not me. If I was asked to do it, I'm unqualified. Erica probably never wanted that responsibility, but felt that she was trying to keep her husband's dream alive. So she's trying to move this organization forward while at the same time being a mother, while at the same time grieving the loss of her husband. And we're going to look at every facial expression she's made with the microscope. That's what we're going to do. And then we have this exchange. So here's part of Erica talking about Andrew Colvin and Erica Kirk talking to the doctor.
This was the day of Charlie's actual funeral, not the WWE memorial events, but the actual funeral, which was the night before. And they panicked that I had seen the footage, and somebody at the FBI called Turning Point and asked explicitly to Justin Strife whether or not I had recorded it. At that point, Justin Strife, who is the COO of Turning Point USA, messaged my husband, called my husband, and wanted to know whether or not I had recorded it. And my husband has no idea what he's talking about. He's like, he runs the business. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He then comes out to me. He's like, Justin Strife keeps asking if you recorded this footage. What's he talking about? And instantly in my mind, I said, that's a really weird question. Why does it matter? Why does it matter if I recorded the footage? And I said, don't answer him. I'll deal with it. And then what happened, this is all happening on the day of Charlie's actual funeral. No one should be caring about back footage, anything. Why is the FBI calling? What then happened was Erica peeled off from Charlie's actual funeral, his wife, and she called the surgeon with Andrew Colvett on the phone, a 3-way call. And the story that Andrew would then write, because then he tweeted on the day of Charlie's funeral and said, people want to know why there was, no blood. And then the surgeon says that it was a miracle. And you remember this ridiculous tweet, Charlie ate really healthy. And it normally.
You get the picture. Yeah, like she hypes on that, Colvett was like, wow, Charlie was really healthy. He was a Superman. He was a man of steel. They had someone being hyperbolic about the good health that their friend that was just assassinated was in. Like if I said, he's the strongest man that I've ever known. Well, was he? My friend that just passed away? Oh, wait, didn't you know that weightlifter, that bodybuilder? Oh, you're lying. You know, get the fuck out of here. But nonetheless, here you see the post. It says, Erica Kirk stepped out of Charlie's funeral with Andrew Colvett to get in a three-way call with the surgeon to line up their stories. Andrew Colvett says false. Absolute lies and garbage. Now, the implication of what Candace is saying here is the funeral is going on, not the memorial the day after. During the funeral, the service, Erica Kirk and Andrew Colvett left to talk to a surgeon to get their story lined up. Now, let's make it sound like another way that you may say this is Andrew Colvett and Erica Kirk talked to the doctor to get more details. That's how you may frame it. Or if you wanted to make it seem nefarious, you'd say to get their stories lined up. Colvett says it's false. So here's Here's Candace's response to Colvett saying that's false. She says, which part of this specifically are you saying is false? Andrew, don't wiggle out of this one because I'm 100,000% certain Erica's on the phone when you spoke to Dr. Trotter. It was a three-way call. The surgeon did not go rogue. The quotation about Charlie being a man of steel and eating healthy came from her. So what specifically are you claiming is false? My best guess with the way you lie is you're going on some technicality like we didn't step out of the funeral, though it was on his funeral day. Get specific, Andrew. Now notice what's happened. One way that you could frame this is Erica and Andrew Colvett talked to the doctor trying to get more details of exactly what explained Charlie's death. Or you could say they stepped out of the funeral to get their story straight with the surgeon. Now, both of that's imparting basically the same message, but the framing device on them are different. So when Colvett says, yeah, that's not accurate, she's like, you're gonna lie and be like, well, technically we didn't step out of the funeral, although it was the funeral day. Okay, well, that's a big part of the implication of what you're saying, Candace, because what she's trying to imply is they're so cold-hearted and callous, instead of grieving the loss of their loved one, they're scheming. We need to get our story straight, like two guilty people. If this was just a conversation that happened not at the funeral between a doctor and the loved ones of Charlie Kirk, like you could say this, when my grandfather passed, my dad and several of his sisters were talking to the doctor, even on the day of the funeral, asking exactly how were his last moments. That sounds reasonable. Or you could say, my dad and his sisters during the funeral stepped out to scheme and get their story straight on the death of my grandfather. See the difference? Why should he? You're the one saying you have the proof, you know that it's true. Then what part is he lying about? What are you lying about? Now, this is why I'm saying, if you're Colvett, then why would you ever talk to these people, no matter what you say? There's shit that they're claiming is suspicious of just saying things like, oh, they said Charlie's like a man of steel. He was super healthy. He had very strong skeletal structure, blah, blah, blah. You actually believe that Charlie Kirk had steel bones? Oh, clearly you're guilty of something. I'm just asking questions. Like, there's nothing that Colvett or Erica could say that's not going to be twisted. Now, I don't know what conversations they had. I don't know what Candace was privy to. Maybe in a moment of grief, when there's still suspicion, who the fuck could have just murdered our friend, the leader of this organization, or Erica's husband? Maybe they're reaching out to all kinds of people like, please, dear God, be safe. It could be foreign actors. It could be governments. It could be, maybe people are saying that in the moment. I don't know what the fuck I would say if a loved one of mine was assassinated in public like that and people immediately started cheering. I'd probably be devastated and saying all kinds of shit. I'd probably then not want to run my gums while the trial was ongoing and jeopardize the chance of finding this person that I think killed my loved one guilty. I'd probably keep my mouth shut until after that. But that's the sort of like example that I see, and I'm like, how am I supposed to take this seriously? I'm willing to hear it out. But it sounds like people that are immensely enriching themselves by spreading a bunch of just questions and just throwing shit at the wall. It's one thing to want to be skeptical of official narratives. I'm fine with that. It's another thing to accuse a grieving widow of murder or being complicit in the murder of her husband out of greed or out of being a plant for a foreign country, etc., and just throwing random shit out there. I saw the one guy was saying, he was like, Charlie had scheduled before he died a meeting with his like estate attorney. And I assume he was going to kick Candace out of the will, or Erica out of the will. What an assumption. Wow. I guess I'm glad that you jumped to that conclusion. Ah, yes, Jason, there they got it. Hey, Rob, you're ignoring the part where Erica Kirk's now the CEO. Yeah, someone was going to be the CEO. There's as much evidence because she became the CEO that she murdered Charlie as there is Candace's channel blew up. Therefore, she financially stood to gain by the death of Charlie Kirk. So we have an even suspicion now that it was Erica Kirk or that it was Candace Owens. Immediately did media appearances. Yes, part of what she, who knew her husband probably better than the rest of us, believed was that her husband would have wanted his media empire and his ambitions politically to keep moving forward. So that's what she was trying to do. It was a unique situation in that immediately the vice president of the United States was like, we're going to do a memorial for Charlie Kirk on his show. Am I surprised then the person that Charlie apparently wanted to take over for him was immediately doing media appearances, trying to honor his memory and push his goals forward? Nope. A WWE-style funeral. Who gives a shit? All sorts of celebrities and famous people have had extravagant funerals. And you have the funeral you want. My family will have the funeral they want for me. What's that prove? My Uncle Zepp that had a bunch of people laughing at his funeral. Did we plan to murder him then? Is that what happened? Because it was a stand-up comedy-esque funeral? If it would have been a very private, meek ceremony that had said, that's ridiculous, multi-million-dollar organization, and that's all she did, had little ceremony. If she would have been morose for months and got onto the public spotlight, people would have said, looks like a guilty conscience to me. Why isn't she speaking up? If she tries to laugh and stuff like that, oh, how dare you laugh? That must mean that you were involved with it. There's nothing she could have done that these people wouldn't have said. This is further proof. Because their level of proof is, I think this is exactly how you should act when you're grieving. And if not, then I find every action you take that's not that to be proof of your guilt. All right, so I have a guest on the line, which I'm going to get to in a second. Let me read some super chats real fast. Blaster Pod, $100, you absolute legend, says, listen, we're just asking questions about, I know you fucker. We checked the flight logs, Rob. There was a pterosaurs registered to InGen flying over rural Pennsylvania. We just want to know, Rob. We're very curious. Aren't you curious about the pterosaurs? I think we all are. Did they come from Egypt? Thank you, Blasterbot. Hunter Killer, $10 says, just ask my paramedic wife next to me. CPR for a gunshot wound is just making a fountain. You pack the wound to control the bleed. CPR is the last thing you do. Now, the nature of this, do you think Candace is going to say, my mistake? I was absolutely wrong about this. I need to rethink if I'm wrong about other things. No, she'll just move on. It doesn't matter. Steele, what's happening? Thank you for the gifted membership. Really appreciate it. Jacob Foreman, $5 says, you mean the doctor told them something to make them feel a little better about their dead friend? I'm shocked he had bedside manner. Yep. And then Hellstorm, $10 says, anyone that believed Candace Owens from Gamergate and her social autopsy days deserves to be mocked. Even our host, even the chat, all of you. She told her who she was in her first actions. I didn't know. The only thing I really remembered Candace from was, aside from the Daily Wire, was Blexit. You remember that? Wasn't she like palling around with Kanye at one point? And at first it was like, oh, cool. Cool. It's like a black woman that's conservative. Like, yeah, we need to leave. But then it was obvious it was getting weird. And I was just like, And I have a very unpopular opinion here for a minute. Hellstorm, $10 says, for Rob, for the grift, not one step back, always. Thanks for the $10. Thank you. I have something that's going to piss off a huge portion of my audience. I'm going to say it, though. I can't help myself. Here's the truth. Christ is king. He is. I'm a Christian. I believe that. But Candace was saying that to purposely get Ben Shapiro's. She was saying it as provocative towards him. Oh, you're Jewish? Christ is king. That's what was going on. Now, do I believe Christ is king? Yes. Do I believe you should be allowed to say it? Yes. Do I believe that when you say it, there are people of other religions that get all pissy and we should tell them to kiss our ass? Yeah. But she was saying that intentionally to be antagonistic to Ben Shapiro. There's no doubt. That's what she was doing. You can think what you want of it, but that's what was happening. You might say, good. I don't like Ben Shapiro. Fine. No problem. I'm not making a judgment on him. I'm saying that's what was happening. So I remember commenting about that, and there were people like feigning ignorance, like, what do you mean? She's just stating a truth. Yes, I am sure that's what she was doing. So, now, before I bring on my guest, I think the reason that I haven't talked to him. I think the reason he's coming on is this commentary. And this is, I'm interested in seeing what he has to say about this. So there's this guy, Project Constitution, and I was reading one of his posts yesterday where he's one of these, big Charlie Kirk conspiracy guys, okay, and he's going after Andrew. So he puts this post up. He says, Turning Point USA exposed. Andrew Wilson just admitted two very revealing things. First, they, meaning Turning Point, know they are wildly unpopular and their speakers are going to get destroyed in collegiate debates. Second, they're openly feeding them scripted talking points to repeat. This confirms what many of us have suspected. New batch of copy and paste influencers aren't speaking from their own convictions. They're just repeating whatever propaganda Turning Point tells them to push. Now, I see a J Tate. You can explain here later after my guest leaves. I had said I was there. That's bullshit. And it's weird that now, for the first time in my life, I see a conspiracy forming around an event that I was personally in the know. I was there to witness. No, this wasn't an admission by Turning Point that our debaters are going to get crushed. To the contrary. There were very talented people there, and the people at Turning Point seemed to be very happy with that. They just wanted them to get more expertise on debate. Secondly, no. I was one of the two people that was coaching, and no, we did not feed talking points. We talked more about debate strategy. Not this is what you say. We talked about what is it that you want to say. Now let's help you defend that. That's what we were doing. Here's some of the things people might say against you if you say that. You might get heckled. They might attack your appearance. They might interrupt you. They might want to have a polite conversation, but it drags on for hours and hours. And you got to learn. This is a short format. In fact, me and Andrew were quite specific with the people at Turning Point. We had zero interest in telling them what our specific thoughts were, talking points on specific topics, because it was worthless. Would I like everyone at Turning Point, including the people that we were coaching, to have the exact same political and cultural views as me? Sure, because I like my views. but that's clearly not what the expectation was. So, if you don't believe me, we're going to bring someone else on who was there. And so, without further ado, he's been waiting patiently in the back. We have from the YouTube channel, The Moderate Case, Jake. Jake, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. How you doing, man?
I'm very good. It's a beautiful night here. I went to see the Minions movie, you know. All good, all good.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I wasn't familiar with you before, you know, what happened in Arizona, and that's not a shot at you. I've watched a lot of your stuff, and I'm very appreciative of what you do. I think there's more people who should be doing this and dissecting a lot of these claims and stuff that people are throwing, you know, especially regarding the death of Charlie. And yeah, I just obviously I've had interactions with the UNF America tour and all of those people, even going all the way back to Amfest, where Z was there at the after party, and can just testify to the fact that they are snakes, they're two-faced, they've infiltrated this movement, trying to get a lot of the younger conservative people to come to their side, even people that they had surrounding this event, trying to feed them things. And I just see a lot of lies, and people like this Project Constitution guy, who, by the way, was one of the guys who started the conspiracy months and months ago, that this phone call was between like Erica and Jeffrey Epstein. That turned out to be a huge lie. They're just liars. They don't know what goes on, and their entire mission is to burn down everything that Charlie Kirk ever built, regardless of whether they agreed with him or not. And yeah, just surrounding a lot of the lies that people are spewing, believing everything that they're, you know, again, I wasn't posting anything of the event. I didn't post when I was there. I didn't publicly say that I had been there, but I've already done 2 or 3 campus debates to pick up the mic with Turning Point, and I've dealt with the UNF America tour. I know these people very well. And yeah, none of what they're saying is true. And I mean, we could dive into that. I don't know how long I need to be here. this is not about me at all, but I just thought that other people would enjoy, you know, hearing from somebody else.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember you from there, and I'm very good, very happy that you called in. I thought you did very well there. So there's 2 things I think to talk about. The second is that we'll get to here in a minute, exactly like some details about the event itself. But in general, when we're talking about people like this Project Constitution or Z with the UNF America tour and all of that stuff, right? Like, I think you're exactly right. It falls into basically 2 camps. There is the camp that wants conservatism and Turning Point USA to fail. And so they're going to fuel the flames of these conspiracy theories because that suits their interest. And then there are the people like Candace Owens, etc., that stand to get a tremendous amount of influence and then money because they keep promulgating these conspiracies. Now, I don't think that Candace, I don't know, but I don't think that Candace is intentionally like, yay, I want the Democrats to win. But that's the effect that she's having. She's helping them. So, yeah, I think that for me, a lot of the like sort of complaints, the people that are speaking up, they're doing so because they're actually worried that Turning Point's going to continue to be successful, and that bringing in someone like Andrew or someone like myself will help people like you actually start to do these events and continue to have more and more success. If they thought it was a mistake and you all were terrible and going to lose and me and Andrew were terrible, why would you intervene? You'd say, good, leave them keep doing what they're doing, right? You wouldn't, you know, that's classic Sun Tzu. So the reason they're speaking up and gnashing their teeth and saying, don't talk to Andrew and all these, you know, young kids that were there are going to suck, is because they're worried. That's why they're making these claims, in my opinion. It's certainly not coming from a place of, oh, we have a concern for the fine folks at Turning Point and Erica Kirk, and they're making a mistake with events like this. That's not where it's coming from. It's not coming from a place of like, we're actually concerned about the people in the organization. So I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that particularly on UNF America, their entire business model is leeching off Turning Point.
Yeah.
And trying to seem like they're, you know, copying, like trying to be hip and cool with younger people and then go to these events and try to create like a rivalry. It's sort of like, I don't know if you're a sports fan, but, you know,
yeah,
I, as a Pittsburgh fan, so I'm like a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, our rivals would be like the Ravens, right?
right.
But the Browns think they're our rivals, but the Browns suck. They never win anything. That's the UNF America tour. They're terrible. They think they're rivals with Turning Point. They pretend they are. They're not. They're insignificant. And so they have every incentive to drive up controversy and like, we're the opposition, because they're nothing. And they think as long as they're in the same name as Turning Point and they're continuing to like have some sort of back and forth to some level, that's good for their brand. So that's my opinion on them.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot, but anyone who believes truly that, if Charlie had the opportunity, retrospectively to understand what was going to happen to him, if people actually believe that he would have thought it was in the best interest to shut everything down and not try to seek out younger conservatives and help them and encourage them and guide them to do what he was doing, to continue what he was doing, they're stupid. He would have very obviously thought this. And I think the problem is that Charlie was Turning Point, whether people want to agree with that or not. Turning Point was known for Charlie Kirk, his on-campus debates, the clips. Everyone who has not gone to the headquarters to see the tremendous infrastructure that has been built, from the TP Action to TP Students to TP Faith, he built an entire industry. Nobody that's on the internet right now has even the slightest idea of how powerful what he built was. And he did it all on his own. It was a coalition, and he held all of these people together. The Tuckers, who many people think have, kind of gone down rabbit holes or maybe too far down or to one end, and Candace and all of these other people, Charlie Kirk held all of this together. And this was a point stressed at this event that we were at, is be a builder, not a destroyer. Charlie was a coalition builder. He knew how to handle competing ideas even within his own movement. And now that he's gone, he was the voice for Turning Point. So now Turning Point's reaching out to people to say, hey, do you guys want to go do these campus debates? We believe in you. Established creators. You have people like Officer Tatum, Nick Freitas, Will Witt, myself. We all have decently, sized platforms. And we disagree on certain things. And what these people do who don't seek to build, they just seek to attack. They're going to say, well, Charlie wouldn't have said this. Charlie wouldn't have said this. Why is this person speaking for Charlie? And Turning Point has been very clear, even when they brought me out before I agreed to do a single debate. I told them, you're not going to get me to defend everything Trump's done. And they said, we don't want you to do that. I said, I don't agree with these other people who have done this. And they said, we don't want that. We just want people who are conservative leaning, who can defend their conservative ideals and principles, to go out and try to have conversations with people. And Charlie Kirk did the exact same thing. He invited other conservatives who disagreed with him to debate conservatives amongst themselves, to debate leftists. And Turning Point was never a monolith. It was a coalition of people who could agree to disagree. And the left can't do that. They eat their own. This girl got kicked out of her own group organization for holding quote unquote microaggressions against black people on a TikTok live panel. Mm-hmm. Dean Withers and Parker, the two youngest, Gen Z debaters, they left her because their audience started attacking them because apparently, this Z girl was being microaggressive. Like, these people eat their own, and they hate to see a coalition that can exist and be powerful and successful that has people who can disagree. And that was what Charlie did. He held all of this together. And now the hardest thing is that they don't have that one voice. They don't have that one Charlie. And whatever they promote, whatever comes from Turning Point, from any influencer, debater, etc., people are going to put it under a microscope. They're going to evaluate it. They're going to scrutinize and criticize it. And they're just going to demean Erica Kirk, Mikey, Andrew, etc., because their whole goal is to burn down everything he built. Anybody who loved him would not be doing this. You can't claim to be his friend and try to tear down everything he built. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, spot on. Totally agree. And, a couple things you said there, like, everybody sees the front facing of Turning Point USA, which is like Charlie doing events. And he's very good at that, right? He's very good. He started to get down to almost a perfection, the format of debate, talking to people in rapid succession on campus. He's very good. And it's a unique approach, and it takes a unique skill set. But I would think that what Charlie was even more talented than that was the behind the scenes stuff, the coalition building, the being a genuine person that was willing to hear out different people with different opinions on the conservative side and be able to bring them together and be able to bring on donors and be able to bring on politicians and political groups and be able to bring on young people and to plan, a grand strategy to how to bring people on board. That stuff, like, it will never be possible to replace Charlie with one person. It's going to have to be a team effort. There's going to have to be different people that take different roles. That's just it. That's it. There's no two ways about it. But on the other hand, for me, one of the big incentives I had to want to work with Turning Point is I refuse to accept a world where the left learns that if they engage in an act of violence and take out spectacular people on our side, that it will really cripple us. I don't want that. I want us to come together when an act of violence like this occurs and say, no, we will do our best to, instead of one person, there'll be thousands of us trying to carry the flag. That's what we're going to do. Now, you started to answer what really was the second portion that I wanted to talk to you about, which is, so you can see from these posts what this Project Constitution guy is saying, where, he makes two claims that Turning Point knows that they are wildly unpopular and that their people are going to get destroyed in these debates, and that they're now feeding them scripted lines. So you started to answer this, but I'll just ask it plainly, right? How did you get involved? Did they reach out to you because you're an established creator? Did you reach out to them and say, hey, I'd love to come work with Turning Point? How was it that you got involved working with them in the first place that ended up with you at this event?
Yeah, so I've been doing social media content creation since I was actually probably 14 or 15, like the 2016 election. I'm young. I'm only 22. But I built on established platforms and had them taken. But, about a year ago now, actually this month will be a year, I got onto Instagram. And in a matter of a year, I think I'm now at 560,000 followers. So algorithmically, it's been awesome. A blessing for me. Yeah, it's been a blessing. And across platforms, I'm over 1 million. And Mikey, I think, found me, Mikey McCoy, who's the chief of staff. He was the chief of staff to Turning Point. And we were mutuals for a while. And I heavily went in on Candace Owens for a very long time. When she was at the height of her conspiracy. I think it's kind of fallen off now. Obviously, she's still relevant, but I used to dissect her claims and show how she's lied, how she's backtracked, how this doesn't make sense. And I'm talking about every single day. Yeah. And I probably gained 100,000 followers just off of this. And I think they found me through, I think we were mutuals before then, but they messaged me and they said, we want to bring you out and talk to you and all that. So they brought me out, just me, my manager, and we had a very genuine conversation around that table. Erica, she thanked me, and her eyes were glossy, very teary. Genuine person. Thank you for doing what you're doing to combat all these people who were coming after me, who were coming after shaping this whole narrative around what they did to my husband. And we had a long, genuine conversation, and they talked to me about my views on certain things. And they said, hey, would you be comfortable going out to these campus debates? Because I've already done debate. I'm not an established debater. It's not my main thing. It's mainly just political commentary. But on my channel, I'd had some debates and stuff like that. And I said, yeah. And, they tested certain worldviews that I had. They asked me some questions. They said, how would you respond to this? Or where do you stand on this? And again, as I said earlier, I told them, I said, I'm not like a strict MAGA guy. I'm not one of these guys. I'm a conservative, and where Trump is good, I'll applaud him, and where I think he's bad, then I'll openly say that. And that's what I've built my brand on. That's why I'm called the moderate case. I'm not an independent or centrist. I am a conservative. And I agreed to do it. And I did 2 debates in state. And what do you know, the NF America tour, they obviously have employed, I think, people in all across the globe to go to these campuses. And they showed up with scripted talking points. This guy had a note card, and it was January 6th and Epstein files. And he recorded it, he clipped it, he took me wildly out of context, and he posted the clips, and they got millions and millions of views. I mean, this one guy went from, I think, 8,000 followers on Instagram to 40,000 just off of 3 or 4 videos that he clipped up of me. Now, Turning Point, I don't mean to rant, but it takes them 2 to 3 weeks to, get this footage back to me. Where I can edit it, and they go through and edit it, and you see if they can have things to clip up. So I was just sitting there like, this guy is wildly taking these debate clips out of context to paint me as, I don't know if I could say it on here, a PDF file.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah,
all of these things. And this is, I think this just leads me to, I talked to a lot of the young people at this event, and I said, these people are going to come out and they're going to be hecklers. They're going to attack you. These people from the NF America tour, they're going to record you. They're going to have scripted points that they're going to try to back you into a corner with. And I'm glad that Turning Point is, stepping up to help some of these people, these younger people, because there's nobody else who's stepping up, and we need more people out on these campuses. But yeah, that's the whole gist of how I got involved. I guess they found me, and I agreed to go do it.
I think there were 2 types of people that got involved. There's your story, which is similar to mine. They knew me through Andrew. That's how they got to know me. And they talked to me. And were like, do you have experience? Like, we like what we see with your debates. Do you have any experience coaching? And I was like, yes, that's what I do. I coach collegiate debate. I coached a national championship team, novice national championship team, to 88 nationals in like 2009 or something. I think is when they won the championship at my school. And I've helped people work with debate since then. I've also helped coach candidates for governor here in Pennsylvania, candidates for Congress, helped coach them for public debates they were going to have. And I ran for Congress myself. So they were like, yeah, we'd love to have you come out and help run this, little debate training. So I think there were people like us that already had somewhat of a track record, and Turning Point reached out. And then I think there were some people that are, maybe don't have as much of a track record, but showed promise to Turning Point, and we're working with them to come out and be influencers with this event. What it wasn't was, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, I did not get the impression with anyone there, as Project Constitution is trying to claim here, that these are a bunch of people that Turning Point knows will fail, that's unproven, and so they're basically just throwing up their hands. That's not the impression I got whatsoever. In fact, to the contrary, they were very generous to everyone out there at Turning Point. I don't think they're interested in just throwing money away and buying meals and hotel rooms for people that they think are going to be tremendously unsuccessful. It seemed to me that the vibe was, you all are talented people that we want to give you resources to become more talented. That's the impression I got.
Right. I mean, that was clearly, it was reiterated time and time again. Erica said it the first morning. She said, all of you are here for a reason. We have, for lack of better terms, I would say vetted all of you. We're familiar with all of you. And obviously Turning Point has people who work for them, who are watching these people's content, who know these people, who are seeing the things they say, keeping up with all of them. They're not going to invite somebody who they have no clue about, who they don't believe in. And it was in the introduction. They sent out certain things, with the schedule, and it has it very clearly in there. You're here for a reason. Said we're bringing a mixture of future talent that we believe in, that we can cultivate, people who we see potential in, and already established creators. And that's what you had there. You had people who had platforms with, I don't think anybody had a single million on a platform, but hundreds of thousands. And then you had some of the younger people who don't have that many. And Z and the UNF America Tour and this Project Constitution, if you've gone through their tweets, they're attacking these smaller people. They're saying, look at these throwaway nobodies who Turning Point thinks is going to be the next Charlie. That was also reiterated by Erica. She said, no one will replace my husband. Andrew said it. Erica said it. Everyone there who worked at Turning Point said, no one is Charlie. Charlie cannot be replaced. But, and this is the whole thing. These people are going to go after these smaller creators. And I had pretty long talks in the lobby of the hotel with a lot of these people and said, you're not going to win every debate. Somebody's going to come up, they're going to heckle you, they're going to humiliate you, but you have to, you can't let it destroy your ego. And that's the last thing I want, is for younger conservatives who, I advised them, I implored them, touch up on the opposing people's arguments. And you guys told people this: if you don't know what the other people are arguing, you're never going to be able to defeat them. You always need to be a step ahead. You need to know what they believe and why they believe it, so that you can defend your positions better. I told these people this. I told them what some of you guys advised them. Hey, do some of the debates online. Get into Discord servers, because somebody is going to come up and humiliate you. And I don't want it to scare you guys into thinking you should never do this again. But yeah, everything they say here, no talking points were fed. You guys didn't give us talking points. It was coaching and advisement, or advisory, I would say, on the tactics of debate and the structure of debate. And just example, framing a situation, asking follow-up questions, the Socratic method, asking people to elaborate on their positions. There were no talking points fed. There was no, you have to believe this, you have to say this. There was no, you're the next Charlie Kirk. It was none of that. But these people, again, they're talking as if they were there, and they weren't.
So a full disclosure, I was given a list before I went out there of of 5, in fact, it became 6 topic areas, and a bunch of questions that are the most common questions that people said that they're asked on college campuses. So it had to do with things like affordability, immigration, abortion. And so I was given these questions, and I answered the questions in sort of a debate style, a lengthier debate style that I would answer them. And all over the page, both at the top and the bottom and in my personal conversation, I said, I have no problem answering this. I have no problem giving this to the students as a resource. However, this is worthless and this means nothing. These are my opinions. And it does no good to tell you what my opinion is on, well, here's exactly what I would do with immigration. You might say, that's interesting. I agree with it. Or, well, some of that I like, some of it I don't. But that doesn't help you debate. And so we were quite clear. We have no interest in giving talking points. None. And in fact, you could confirm this if you like. There were all sorts of positions that people came up and argued. We were not telling them what they had to believe. We'd say, what is it that you like to talk about? And then we would go from there. We had people of different religious denomination. We had Protestants, we had Catholics, we had Mormons, we had people that believed that we should be very conversational and polite when we're debating. We had other people that thinks, hey, maybe you should go more for the jugular. We had people that thought that we should deport like everyone that's illegal. We had others that had different opinions, that we should keep people that we think are beneficial economically. There was no shaming of people who were saying, no, you can't have that opinion. This is the turning point line. There was none of that, at least in the 4 hours that I was there. And I can imagine it continued to be like that the entire event. Yeah. I heard not one person from Turning Point, not one student there, not me, not Andrew say, this is what you have to believe. Nothing. Never heard it once.
100%. All of that is true. And I mean, I can even give you an example of the last day of the event. And one of the side buildings separate of that, which we were in when you guys were helping out, they had people, under the tent. I think some of the pictures, I think Project Constitution has posted some of these. I think one might have even been attached to that tweet. They put a guy under the tent who is very, I would say, isolationist. He doesn't believe in getting involved in Middle Eastern wars and things like that. And one of the things that I'm known for is what I talk about in terms of Middle Eastern policy. And I've been very critical of this war and how it's been handled and certain objectives that were not made clear. Well, I'm not going to dive into that, but I thought that there was a justification for the strikes in the Middle East. Not to say I think everything has been conducted well, but they knew this. And they came up to me and they asked me, they said, we're going to put this guy into the tent who, is not in favor of this. And we know you are in favor of this in a way. We want you to come up and act like the leftist or act like the person who's opposing the argument to go back and forth. So you have two people who are conservatively minded on the right who are having a back and forth debate to strengthen each other's positions. They're using somebody on the right who holds a differing opinion than somebody on the right to strengthen it. So there is no, oh, this is what you should say. This should be your position on whatever, the Middle East or immigration or Israel, any of that. It was none of that any single day. And again, this is what Charlie was best at. Is
right. I was just going to say, I think that Charlie exemplifies. If anything, that's more to the point of Charlie, where Charlie was willing to work with people, not only within the conservative umbrella that had vastly different opinions on specific issues, but also that stylistically were different. Like, Charlie wasn't so puritanical that it was like, oh, I'll only work with people that dress like very well and wear suits and ties and speak in a certain way. He was trying to build a coalition of varying people of varying degrees on the right, because he truly believed that conservatism needed a resurgent, particularly with young people, and he was willing to help be that person that could be a focal point and someone that everyone could come to and be like, listen, I'm more of the, non-interventionist side of things. And Charlie, what do you think about this? I don't like what I heard Ben Shapiro saying and stuff. And Charlie was that person that could be a middle person that could broker, and you see what happened after he's been gone, the infighting. So the entire idea that this, it was just so weird to me. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I've never been involved in knowing the details to know that a conspiracy is garbage. In this case, just a little small one, but this conspiracy of what this event was about. And it's laughable. I was there and I'm like, couldn't be further from the truth. I thought it was a bunch of young, talented people with their own opinions that no one was telling them what they had to think, that were there to try to get better in various ways to craft their message and their skills. What's wrong with that? And I heard Z saying the event was a disaster. Says who? I thought the event was very good. So it's clear that this is just people that are, just throwing stuff against the wall for attention, and it has no basis in reality. Not the parts that I've seen, and you're saying the same thing. The rest of the event wasn't, this is what you have to say, here's the talking points you need. And again, as always, they accuse you of what they do. You mentioned people from their group coming up with cue cards, written to say exactly what they're supposed to say. They always seem to be like that. Our greatest strength's also one of our weaknesses, that we're independent thinkers and we're okay with it. We'll happily be friends and align with people that's like, yep, Whereas so many of these people on the left, they sit there and wait for people to craft the talking points, and then they all repeat them verbatim. And so,
Right.
like, it's always funny to me, like when a big story breaks. I debated Destiny and all these guys on January 6th and insurrection. And I kept telling them, the definition you're using for insurrection so broad, it basically means every Black Lives Matter rally was an insurrection. Well, lo and behold, we have the anti-ICE rallies and riots. Those are all, based on their definition, insurrections. So as soon as they start to happen, you're like, okay, everyone, now the left's doing insurrections on a nightly basis. What say you? And they all wait for like a talking point. They'll wait like a week until a talking point comes out, and then they'll all repeat it at the same time. So I think it's
Right.
really funny to hear Z and them make this accusation of talking points. It's like, and by the way, Z, does she debate? Or is her job just like
she's kind of, so she thinks she's the Charlie Kirk on the other side of the aisle,
Right.
but they're nothing but parasites who have built their entire movement off of being anti-Charlie Kirk. If you've built a movement off of being anti-something, then you're not creative, you're not unique, you're a parasite. But she doesn't do as many debates. I believe she was on a recent Jubilee episode. I know that she said she debated this younger kid who just signed a deal with the Daily Wire and had his own show. I talked to him. He said that she's lying about how it went. He says
the
she
Matt
got fact-checked.
Nuclear, that guy?
Yeah, me and him are
Yeah.
good buddies. I talk to him occasionally, and like she said, she's going to destroy him. She's already posted multiple videos saying that she has multiple investigations going on into even some people who were at the Turning Point thing. But yeah, I think Matt debated her following up on I think head-to-head at a Jubilee thing. She says she won. Matt says that she didn't, and that she got fact-checked time and time again. We'll have to wait and see. But she's not very skilled in debate. She's not stupid, but I don't know how they are so closely tied to a lot of these things. Like I said, they were at the after party, which was a handful of people, probably less than 150 people, mainly creators and people that the Daily Wire hosted at AmFest. Very private after the event, and they were literally right beside me, and Michael Knowles was there, and they even went up and talked to Michael Knowles, and they're very happy, and oh yeah, we're not crazy, and we just disagree, and we're a little bit more left-leaning. And then they go back and they get on social media, and they're snakes. They're two-faced. And
yeah, look at the stuff that she said about Charlie and all this stuff, and then they're selling. And I can tell you right now what happens. There's this guy Brian Shapiro that always used to call into my show all the time, and he's terrible. Brian's great. Brian's excellent, right? Because he's, quote, well-liked in right-wing spaces. He's on Tim Pool and stuff all the time. What he doesn't realize is it's because he's super low effort to like smack around. So it's like in professional wrestling, they have the concept of like a jobber or an enhancement talent. And it's someone that it's like, the Harlem Globetrotters always beat the Washington General. That's Brian Shapiro. He's the guy that always gets beat. So it's like, sure, we'll bring you up. And what happens is he glad hands and all this stuff and behind the scenes acts real polite. When you're talking to him live, he's playing this character where he's like super vitriolic and the stuff he's saying super vitriolic. And then behind the scenes, oh, how you doing, man? No, that was a lot of good. That's good entertainment. And so then they get invited to these things because conservatives, we're happy warriors. We're like, sure, you want to come to our event? No problem. Just don't cause a stink. Yeah, we'll have a meal with you. Be like, how you doing? Shoot the breeze, no problem. And then they run around and they're like, see, we have connections. We have connections to Turning Point. We have connections to the Daily Wire. We were there. We were at the event. Then that's how much we were. And you people are nothing that weren't at the event because we're respected in these groups. And then they do nothing but denigrate Turning Point or the Daily Wire. So it's laughable. And it's one of the things I was trying to impart. In my opinion, everyone has to have their own style. But I think that it's time to start, it's fine to give people the benefit of the doubt initially. But at some point, you have to accept these people for what they are. These aren't well-meaning people that you just have polite disagreements. These are people that are trying to tear you down to build themselves up. And it was one of the points I was trying to, obviously we only had 4 hours, but it's one of the points I was trying to make because so many of the people in that group we were in there are very kind-hearted, you could tell. And it takes a lot to tell someone no, it's okay to be like, you people are snakes. You laughed, you mocked when Charlie was killed, or you celebrated, or even if you didn't do that, you immediately went into, well, he was a fascist, or well, he was a racist. That's despicable. And we don't have to sit there and pretend to break bread with you we don't have to do that. We're not obligated. So, I'm not surprised to see people like that they're going to, oh, we posted some pictures that were available on public social media, and now we're acting like we were inside, and we're going to give you the deets. It was all talking points, and they all know they're a bunch of failures. It couldn't be further from the truth. It's just laughable. It's clickbait stuff that they're trying to use to stay relevant. And for me, if you're a confident person in your debates or in your commentary and your political positions, then you don't have to make everything about drama. We have insiders that are talking. You just say the positions that Turning Point are advocating and their people are not very good. And here's how we beat them in debates. You wouldn't be doing this. We're infiltrating the organization and we're giving you the specifics of like, what did they have for lunch, on day 2. It's like, who cares about any of this? I don't care what a bunch of people that want Turning Point to fail think about how successful this event was. I just don't care. I know what they're doing. They're trying to like plant the seeds of doubt and everything so that it's wishful thinking and so that they hope that there's a response so they can be relevant. That's it as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. They've built everything in opposition to Turning Point. I think that about sums it up. I wanted more people to, again, I really, really appreciate what you do from what I've seen of you and
Thank you.
how I think you conducted yourself. You're very good, obviously, in the structure and tactics and strategy of debate. I'm glad that you guys came out to help the younger people and even some of the older people. Very obviously, you guys you know what you're doing. And more people need, I think, to be taking a stand. Again, nobody has to agree with everything Turning Point's ever done or everything Erica or Andrew said or how they conduct themselves. But as you were saying earlier before I came on, it doesn't matter what Erica Kirk does. If she smiles, then, she should be crying. If she cries, then she's acting. If she's out on the stage, then she should be home with her children. If she's home with her children, then she's not continuing what she should have been doing to carry on Turning Point. Everything's microscopically evaluated, and they're going to hammer her regardless of what she does, which just shows these people aren't in good faith trying to actually evaluate what's going on. They're just attacking a grieving widow and trying to tear down an organization that Charlie built. Again, the main point, which was a coalition that was held together by Charlie himself, single-handedly, that included people from all different sides, from the center to the right, who could agree to disagree on certain things. And that is not what the modern left is. They're cultish, they're monolithic, and they eat their own. And it's sad to see. I think all these people are just grifters in the game. The Candace Owenses and who's the other guy, Baron Coleman, and Ian Carroll. All these people, they're just snakes. They're in it for themselves. And again, I could just tell you I've talked with people from Turning Point to PragerU to Daily Wire, who have all corroborated that Candace Owens is just a complete narcissist. Doesn't get along with their colleagues, always thinks she's the biggest, baddest person in the room, very snarky, just very disrespectful. And I was even told that Jordan Peterson has said that she's like clinically like narcissistic, like she would be diagnosed with like the highest possible level of narcissism. But she's a great talent. She knows what she's doing, and it's a shame that people fall for it. So, we need more people like you and Andrew and people who can build platforms, who aren't afraid to put themselves out there, on camera in a live setting to debate and take down these ideas that are cancerous and that are actually, I think, posing a danger to the right, because I think it's fractured ever since his death. It's just not the same as it was before. So I appreciate what you guys do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you as well, and it was great to meet you down there. I put the link out to your channel, The Moderate Case, the YouTube channel, and you can find his other social media accounts from there. Do you got anything coming up you'd like to promote? Any big debates, any big videos that you have coming up, or live streams or anything like that?
I actually, not that I know of. I have some stuff planned later with Point in their faith department. I am a Christian later next month and the month after that. That's the only big events that I have planned now. But yeah, you guys can, whatever, if this is a plug, I'm on every social media at The Moderate Case. I specialize in probably short form content, but every now and then I'll do a debate on specific issues. But no, I appreciated the conversation, and again, I appreciate what you do, and I'm going to be watching a lot more of your stuff from now on. Especially, it's good that it's late at night, because this is my only free time is like 10 p.m. and afterwards. So I appreciate you for having me on and all that you do, man.
Thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate you as well, and looking forward to seeing more of your stuff. Hopefully we get to see each other again soon. So thank you so much, man, for coming on tonight.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. God bless.
All right, God bless. We'll see you. That's The Moderate Case. So yeah, he was one of the people that was there. So now look, I know the people that are convinced that this was some nefarious conspiracy going on there, and just like some drill sergeants telling these younger people exactly what they have to say. They're going to say, so what? Another liar. But he's not. He's telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. Andrew's telling you the truth. That's what happened. It wouldn't even make sense for them to, if they were just interested in Turning Point was just interested in feeding just the talking points they want. Why would they even bring in someone like Andrew or me who have disagreements with them? It wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. So, yeah, he's a good guy. So you should check out his channel. That's The Moderate Case. I'll put it one more time. And I'm very happy that he came on. Now, I know Andrew's doing a stream here coming up. So for those that'll be leaving, I do thank you for staying with me as long as you did. We're going to get to Super Chats here in a minute. But before we do, I did want to briefly talk about the midterms, just very quick. I'm going to do this in like 4 minutes. I've said that I think that Trump, if the election would have been happening like 2 months ago or anytime since then, that the Democrats would have definitely won the House and stood a good chance to win the Senate. The problem is twofold. In our current politics, it is incredible. It sounds counterintuitive, but this is the truth. The best time for a candidate or for a party is the first day that a candidate announces. So much of our politics now is just disliking the other side, and rightfully so, I guess, from both sides' perspective, that the longer you have a candidate out there and the worse your candidate is, the more attacks there are, and it drives down that popularity. And so ironically, if Democrats were allowed to just run a random, like, empty suit, like, you know, Joe Biden type person, they would do well. But the problem is they can't help themselves because their base is extreme. And they continue to elect more and more socialists and communists that say all kinds of stuff like we should give everyone citizenship, we should disband the police, et cetera, et cetera. And so the problem for the Democrats, particularly in the Senate, but you're going to start to see the margins closing on predictions with the House as well, is they can't help themselves. They're putting out candidates that their crazy base likes in the primary, but that's going to have a difficult time getting people to vote for them in the general election. So that's one. Number two is, even though we no longer have election day and we have like election 6 months now or whatever, which is shameful in its own right, nonetheless, there's a lot of time till the election. And a lot of it's going to hinge on one issue. What's the issue? You guys know it. I've talked about it before. All the talk I have of communism or foreign policy and all this, what's the issue that's really going to drive the midterms? Does anyone know? I'll give you a clue. It's the economy. If things are looking really good come a month before the election, economically, that's a big benefit to Republicans. If things are looking bad and inflation's up and energy prices cuts a lot, Republicans are going to struggle. If I had to make a prediction today, my prediction would be that the Republicans keep the Senate probably at about the same margins, maybe even pick up one seat in the Senate, and they narrowly lose the House. Now, that's not good. I'm pushing for every possible victory we could get. No, I'm not taking calls right now. But that's where I think things stand. So we'll see. It's a long time towards the election. I think that's why Trump was trying to incentivize a peace deal and a ceasefire, because he wants to get back to focusing on domestic things. I myself was not a fan of what happened in Iran. I'll stand by it. But I think that that's really going to be where we're at. So work within the system. It's not enough to just win the general elections. Get involved in the primary system as well and get better people in there with more conservative values to win Republican primaries. Because the left is not going to moderate. Their base is becoming more and more radical. And on one hand, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, you say, well, good, that may mean that it's a better chance that Republicans win. But it also means if Republicans lose, they will pack the courts. They will add 2 states. They will give legislative control over justices and judges that they don't like. They will try to lock up all of their opponents. They will try to push a disinformation board. They're going to do all of those things, and it may be unrecoverable. They're going to open up the border again to millions upon millions of people. DD, I've also said, I think the assassination culture is so bad right now that we are likely to see another political assassination before the midterms. At least an attempt, but I think there will be a successful attempt. And it's terrible, but that's where we're at. How many people remember the attempted assassination, the people that were arrested with a drone strike outside the White House UFC event? How many people remember the White House press correspondent's attempted assassination? Now it's just ho-hum. What formerly would be stories that we recount for months and months, now they're out of the news cycle in 2 to 3 days. That's how fast things are accelerating. So that's where we're at. All right, I'm going to go to the restroom real quick, and then I will be right back, and we'll read some super chats. What do we want to hear while I'm in the restroom? You know what we should hear? You know what we haven't heard? No, that's not it. Do you remember my good friend Gully, who won the Dino Battle Championship? Well, we haven't heard his championship song in quite some time, have we? Let's play that. Be right back.
Still came through, packed with courage, clawed our way to tough odds. We wrecked them down, turned that frown to a champion crown. Each teammate played their part. Big dino heart, big dino heart. When the ground shook, we stood tall. When they doubted, we fought through it all. Tail to tail, we held the line. Now the top is ours this time. Winner of the Blaster by Dino Battle Invitational. Gully 46, we made it. We made it. Winner of the Blaster by Dino Battle Invitational. We came up raw and we slayed it. We slayed it. We were outgunned, out-muscled, outpaced. Still left our mark in every race. No fossil feelings, no old regrets. Just sharpened focus, perfect bets. Steady as a stag, we stayed aligned. Clawed through chaos, never recline. One more round, we bit back hard. Now every loss is a stepping card. When the sparks flew, we didn't fold. We kept our code, we kept it bold. Snout to snout, we faced the heat. Now the whole arena knows we're elite. Winner of the Blaster by Dino Battle Invitational. Gully 46, we made it. We made it. Winner of the Blaster by Dino Battle Invitational. We came up raw and we slayed it. We slayed it. Teamwork made the thunder roll. Every dino played a role. From the smallest to the giant roar. We learned to rise, then rise some more. No extinction, no goodbye. We kept on reaching for the sky. One more push, one more cheer. Gully 46, the trophy's here. Winner of the Blaster by Dino Battle Invitational. Gully 46, we made it. We made it. Winner of the Blaster by Dino Battle Invitational. We came up raw and we slayed it. We slayed it.
Get him, Gully. I don't care what they say about the Dino Battle Invitational. Now, one more thing before we get to Super Chats. Thank you to the OGs that stuck around and didn't go tune into that Zio shill, Andrew Wilson. What a shill. You know, just between me and you, I heard that he went down to Turning Point and was like a huge, terrible person down there. I'm just saying, I heard that. That's the rumors that I heard. I heard no one even really likes him down there. Let me defend my good friend, Destiny. Wow. I'm going to defend Destiny here for a minute. So the newest scandal going on about Destiny is apparently he had said, I don't know if it's on Discord or something, he had said that someone's going to die here. Can you believe it? He's threatening to harm people like that. Now, Destiny said some shit that I've called out. Like when he said every conservative streamer should be, or every conservative should be fearful to go in public. When he said the worst thing that could happen was that bullet missing Donald Trump and Butler when he mocked Corey Compatore for dying. Fuck him. His audience becoming basically school shooter vibes. But in this particular incident, I feel like it's worth looking what the best interpretation of what he's saying is. And so I'm going to show you. This is what people are pointing to say that this commentary, I assume this is from a Discord server or something, is Destiny threatening that him or someone in his audience is going to kill someone. So I think it starts chronologically at the bottom here, it looks like. It says, just a heads up, I'm going to be doing mass harassments to anyone who interviews Hassan, and it's a cupcake interview. It's basically what he's saying. You can think what you want about that. I don't give a shit. Then he says, someone is going to die soon in this space, I'm pretty sure. I don't know who, but there is nowhere to go on literally anything. Every single person is a PDF. Every issue is about infinite genocide in Palestine. Every single person is so fake and virtue signaling. There's literally nowhere else to go at this point. I'm not sure who, but I think it'll happen soon. So first, let me defend Destiny. I do not believe this is Destiny threatening people that he or someone that he informs is going to end to kill someone. Right. It sounds like a warning, not a threat. And I understand Destiny's. I don't fucking like Destiny. I don't. Let's be clear. I have no reason to defend him because, like, he's my friend or anything like that. Not at all. To the contrary. But I'm trying to call balls and strikes, and this, to me, does not sound like he's making a threat. This doesn't even sound like when he was like, I wouldn't suggest someone do this, but can someone look up Ryan's legal credentials? That's different than this. That's number one. However, this is where my defense of Destiny stops. But what he's saying here, if you read between the lines, you all tell me if this is a fair interpretation of what you're reading on the screen here. He's saying, look, people are becoming so extreme. It's no longer a matter of we have different opinions on something. Now it's, if you disagree with me, you're the worst person. You're a PDF. You're a murderer. And so there's nowhere to go at this point except someone is going to commit an insane act of violence. Because that's it. There's no more. Everybody's becoming extreme. Does that seem like a fair interpretation of what he's saying? Am I wrong? That's my best faith interpretation of what he's saying. My response to this is, that's you, Destiny! When you're out there saying all conservatives should fear for their lives, when you're saying Trump's declared himself God, Emperor, King, that's you. That's all the people that for years on your side have been saying Trump's a Nazi, his supporters are that, they're all racist bigots, blah, 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 blah. That's you! You're right! That's why there's been such an uptick in violence, because this is what your side has been promoting. And you individually, that's why your own moderator went on your channel and said that your audience is having, quote, school shooter vibes. But you're right. When you look at the battle now, the infighting, of course, the left was eventually going to eat their own. So you have the Hassan people fighting with the Destiny people or the Ethan Klein people, etc., etc. You're right. And the audiences are fucking foaming at the mouth. Some of them. And something fucked up is going to happen. That's probably why you shouldn't be saying shit like the worst thing that could happen was that bullet missing Trump, or all conservatives should fear for their life. So while I'll defend that I don't think that this was Destiny calling for violence, it's him, on one hand, noticing how extreme things are getting, but on the other hand, refusing to acknowledge his hand in it. Yes, things are going there because of people like you. So, I just saw that that was trending and thought I would chime in there. All right, let's read Super Chats. Our good friend Crucible Crusader, 5 gifted memberships. Thank you so much. John McCarty, another 5 memberships. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it. And then Smokey. Look at this. Everybody gifted memberships. Thank you. 5 gifted memberships. Thank you so much. Then we have the Devil's Raspberry says, "Hola, Rob. Awesome to see the moderate case here. It's a great dude." Yeah. I was thrilled that he came on. "I highly recommend getting his takes along with Nick Mattel's and Cam Higby's on the Israel debate ASAP. I'd love to have him on. That's actually a great idea. I'll reach out to him and see if we want to have a conversation about Israel someday. I think it'd be great." Smokey, thank you for the $10. Says, "I owed you 1 super chat. Now we're even. I'll take it. Thank you so much." And then he becomes a member and says, "This one's free." Thank you. 4 months. Thank you. The Great Picks Paradox, $50. Thank you. Says, "For future whips, last night was epic. It was maddening." I don't know if epic's the word I would use, but thank you. And then, look at this legend. Daniel Graves, $100. Thank you. Says, "Hey, Rob, lovely whip song session last night. Also, what's your take on the young generation facing this degenerate cliff edge? And how do we walk ourselves back from said cliff edge? The hookup culture and divorce rates that make marriage scary for young people." It's a great question. First off, I think part of what we as conservatives, whether it be via our religion, through Christianity, or whatever denomination you are, whatever, or just conservatism in general, even not looking at it through a lens of religion, we need to let young people know that actually we're not these stodgy people that are never having fun. I hate this. I hate people that do this and glorify it. And I've talked about this before, but I'm about to partake in this. Just to make a real quick point. I was a fun drunk. I was an alcoholic. I think most of the people that knew me as a drunk would say 90% of the time I was super fun to be around. I was very sociable. I traveled with a band, had a lot of fun doing that. I'd done other substances. There is nothing in life that remotely comes close to the joy of being married and having kids. Nothing. I continue. I think I have fun. I continue. I'm not sitting around just wearing a suit and tie every day, like smoking a pipe, reading the newspaper. I have all sorts of fun. And I think that it's not just talking to young people. It's living your life in a way that young people could see, like, I like that. I like what I'm seeing there. And then being open and approachable and saying, like, look, we're not here to judge you too harshly. And then it's about beyond that, then when it comes specifically to hookup culture, I think that the red pill is awfully right about a lot of things that they correctly are identifying as problems in our current society. It's just their solutions, basically nihilism. So just go out and hook up with a bunch of people. We'll teach you how to do that. And by the way, they will teach you. Their tactics work many times. But I think there's more to it. I think that there's a greater value. and recognizing that although it's difficult to navigate, that there are people out there, there are women out there. If you're a woman, there are men out there that are good people, that want to settle down, that want to start families. And just because it's difficult to navigate, there are certain things you could do. Try to not meet people at the bar. Try to meet them at church events or at social gatherings. Get out there. Get a big network of people that you're friends with in real life, not just online, but that you're actually meeting in real life. And that increases your chance of meeting someone that could be a significant other who you actually know, people that you would have a better feeling of who that person is before you're going out on dates with them. Don't cheapen it by just rushing to have sex or things like that. And I think that what you'll see is that I'm predicting there will be a resurgence, particularly of young conservative people that realize just how great it is to have a family. There's nothing like it in the world. I'm not saying that some of them aren't going to end in terrible divorces or, I mean, that's horrible. That's just the truth. But it's worth trying to find that and to find someone to spend your life with and to have kids. That's the things that are really fun. That's the things that really give life meaning. So, Pix Paradox, $50 says Blaster About Dino Battle Invitational song. Earned it. Thanks, Rob. Hashtag Dino Day. Thank you, Pix Paradox. Really appreciate it. And then the great Zach Gelpy, $5 says, don't worry, Rob. You're my favorite Zio shell. Thank you. I already got shit because Zach's Jewish and would send me money. But now that Turning Point paid me money to coach debates, now I'm really getting it. How much money did Israel pay you, Rob? Nothing yet. If I heard about the Pragmata game. Yeah, I did, about like the guy having a daughter, that game. Yeah, you know. So. But no black pilling here. Not for me. All right. We've done a 2-hour show. We've come to the portion of the show where we do stupid whip songs. They're the worst. I owe 2. Rules are quite simple. For $100, every $100 donation, we spin the wheel and we play a whip song. At this point in the show, anytime we get over $100 mark, that's a second one. So if you donated $20 right now, that'd be a whip song for getting us to $400. If you donate $100, that'd be 2. 1 for getting us over $400 and 1 for donating $100. You can also donate $150 to choose a specific song or $200 to create a whip song in the style of your choice. I will play these 2 songs begrudgingly after last night. Last night was depressing. It was too much. But I do thank you all for your donations.
By depressing, you mean friggin' amazing.
I don't mean that. I mean the opposite. Is what I mean. What do we got to start with?
Part of me wanted that just to be Disney, just to get you for like right off the cuff.
I'm surprised it wasn't, knowing how things have been going. But here we go. Flamenco. My new phone's already, it's trying to load things. It's not working. So I have to like load in all of my like social media accounts and good things like that. So, yeah, the moderate case is like, huh? Yeah, I get it. He may have heard some last night though. So, all right, here we go. Last one if no one else donates, which is fine. Hakuna Matata? I know that song. Of course, Cretaceous Crust Punk. I remember when I was a kid, everybody was listening to Cretaceous Crust Punk. That was really the genre that. Oh, snap. Is that it? Am I getting out cheap? 2 quick ones? Oh, beautiful. Stomp around the circle. I used to go to those shows. I used to go to the metal shows. I remember I was at a show. Oh, who was it? Candiria. You've ever heard of the band Candiria? I went there with my friend. And he was one of those dudes that wouldn't get in the mosh pit, but he would stand around it and then like elbow people in the back. And we're at this small club in Pittsburgh, and he elbows this dude in the back, and the dude turns and looks at him. And then he does it again. Next thing you know, like 7 dudes turn around. They're about to whoop our ass. And my friend's like the biggest puss in the world. So these dudes all come over. I'm like, ah! And they're like, keeps hitting us in the back, blah, blah, blah. I was like, he's a fucking moron. What do you want? He's a nerd. Leave him alone. Which is true. He was a moron. So they had mercy and didn't beat him. But it's always fun to have to tell people, my friend's an idiot. Please don't beat him. But it was fun. We used to do stuff like that. Most pits were pretty reasonable. Like if you got knocked down, people would help you up and stuff. But I've been to a couple where people would be like stomping on you and shit. It's a different world. It was never really like the violence that scared me about pits. It was more of the like you would just accidentally like run out of breath or something because there's a sea of people pushing. And that you might like get crushed up against the gate, or you'd fall down and people wouldn't notice you and trample you a little. That was always like the accidental nature of a big show like that was always to me a bigger risk than someone like actively like pummeling you. And I think there's a lot of people that didn't go to shows like that thought that's what was going on, but very rarely. In fact, in my experience, especially metalheads were overwhelmingly nice. Now I'd been to some punk shows that there's some crazy people there. I'd seen more unsavory punk crowds than I had metal crowds. Metal crowds were almost always. But I'd seen a couple times in a punk crowd where like 2 groups of people like were beating the shit out of each other, like bad. But in metal, I'd never seen it that much. There we go. Look at this legend. Wade Boggs, $20 says, I got us chat, don't trip. Yeah. Biohazard and Sepultura. Yeah, the small clubs will get you. You could see, I was at a punk show actually once at a small show in Pittsburgh. And this was my goodness, I'd have been 15. So you're talking 26 years ago. And they were serving glass bottles. And some opening act, it was definitely a punk show. I remember it. The band was called River City Rebels. And like, they just weren't going over. And someone threw a beer. And that was it. It was like 40 beer bottles just whipping by your head, like smashing people. People were getting hurt. And no one gave a fuck. It was like security was just like, whatever. And then now what you see is, even at ball games, no one's really giving out glass bottles. But the small club environment, it's like, yeah, you'd get in there sometimes, and it was just like the crowd would just overcome the small amount of security, and they'd just be like, fuck it. I'm not messing with that. It was, sometimes it get out of hand. All right, Devil's Raspberry, $2 says whips on slur bangers last night. Whenever, yeah, aluminum bottle. Yeah, a full aluminum bottle will mess you up too. All right, I owe one more. Thanks to the great Wade Boggs. Boom, boom. Megadeth in an amphitheater. Crowd tore off the first 10 rows of seats. Wow. K-pop electric. I imagine there's some pretty rowdy K-pop electric jazz shows as well. That's really a genre that gets people fired up.
The whip, there's a way. Where there's a whip, there's a way. We don't want to go to war today, but the Lord of the Lash says nay, nay, nay. We're gonna march all day, all day, all day. Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where the whip, where the whip, where there's a whip, the whip. We're gonna fight, we're gonna march all day and night and more. For we are the slaves of the dark Lord's war. There's a way, there's a way out.
Yeah, Wade, of course, is correct. It's not a minute, so it doesn't count. If this one is also not a minute, it now counts. You can always count on Wade could be like not watching. And they're just like, there'd be a tingling feeling in the back of his neck. Like, I think a whip song just played that wasn't a full minute. I better let people know. All right. Peruvian space lobster. Of course.
Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where there's a way, there's a way. We don't wanna go to war today, but the Lord of the Lash says nay, nay, nay. We're gonna march all day, all day, all day. Where there's a whip, where there's a will, where there's a way, there's a way. Where there's a whip, there's a will. Where there's a way, there's a way. Where there's a whip, there's a whip. Left, right, left. Where there's a whip, there's a whip. Left, right, left, right,
Devil's Raspberry, $2 is finally a whip song I could play in the bedroom. Of course. Oh, my goodness. Is that going to be it for tonight? I'm okay with it. I'm okay. I have to say, the Rumble crowd, Rumble kicked ass last night. Oh, my goodness, I almost missed it. Mangozi, 5 gifted subs over on Rumble. Thank you. I take back the mean words I was about to say that no one donated anything on Rumble. Not true. We didn't do a chat of the month for June, did we? Well, I think Gully's the de facto chat of the month, winning the Dino Battle. I think that basically counts. We'll do one for July, though. We will. July 2nd. Mm-hmm. What do y'all think? I'm okay calling it an early night. I'm okay. You know, I'm very excited Friday. I'm going out. I'm taking my son fishing with my dad. There's an event in the town I grew up in. It's called Cops and Bobbers, where you get to go fishing. A lot of local police are going to be there, and everybody's going to have a good time fishing. So that's going to be Friday morning for me. So I don't know where Crisco's at, but there you go. Going out fishing with my son and my dad. I'm very excited. I haven't been fishing at all this year. Imaginarium thinks his chances are good. Nah. All right, Caleb. Caleb's always greedy. He always asks for the Spurg video. All right, let's do it. Jews. Now I'm good. Now I'm speaking the truth. There it is. Am I missing anything? Well, we're going to raid over to Andrew Wilson. He's doing a chill stream. I think he's going to give you more of the absurd conspiracy, Charlie Kirk conspiracy theories. So that should be good. I had a good time tonight. Special thanks to the Moderate Case for coming on and talking to us. Really appreciate it. Thank you to my friend Avers, to my editor Black Elk. Thank you to all my mods. Everyone that donated tonight, thank you so much. Everyone who liked the stream, everyone who chatted, everyone who subbed, or everyone who just watched. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it all. I will be doing the extravaganza tomorrow at 5:30 once more. Maybe with Andrew, maybe by myself. Doesn't matter. I'm good either way. And then we'll do a regular show. Apologize for the lack of no prep debates. I don't know what's going on. I'm ready to do them. I'll do them any night. So it's just a problem of lining up schedules with opponents. So I don't think there'll be a no prep debate tomorrow. Maybe I'll do a call-in tomorrow night. Would you guys like that? And people could call in and yell at me and say I'm wrong, and I'll smack them around as I always do. What do you mean I'm wrong? I'm always right. You know, stuff like that. But either way, it should be fun. So we talked a lot today about the conspiracy series against Erica Kirk and company. Never forget what they did to Charlie. How he was assassinated. So many people cheered it on. They disrupted his memorials. They attacked his wife. Things that his children will have to see that's on the internet forever. And never forget that's what the stakes are, and that's what they would do to you as well if they thought you were effective and it would help them. So just take a moment out tonight and say a prayer for Charlie and for Erica and for their family. And never forget, you don't have to black pill, but it's important to know what the stakes are. So, all right, we're raiding over to Andrew Wilson. Tell him I said hi. We will see you all later. See you tomorrow night. As always, have a good one.
Only in America is it possible to say, you know what, I don't like the way the country is going, and to do something about it. Take that risk. Take that leap of faith. Stay involved. Trust God and act obediently. Romans 12:2 verse. That God will use all things for good for those who love him. It's bigger than you. I want you to remember that. It is bigger than you. It's bigger than me. You are here to make somebody else's life better, the pursuit of liberty and freedom. You know what gives me strength? The hundreds of thousands of you that say, Charlie, keep going.
1 Corinthians 5 and 15. So that's all pretty amazing evidence, not just intra-biblical evidence, but extra-biblical evidence that Jesus Christ was a real person. He lived a perfect life. He was crucified, died, and rose on the third day, and he is Lord and God of all.